The mining outpost of Talos 9 drifted in the dark like a rusted lung, wheezing ore into freighters bound for richer worlds. For most, it was a punishment posting, bad air, bad pay, and worse company. For Mason Cade, it was perfect. Nobody asked questions, nobody cared. Aliens from 10 systems stomped past him in the ore corridor, never sparing a glance at the human with oil-smeared overalls and a permanent slouch. To them, he was barely more than the rusty pipe he welded or the air vent he crawled through at midnight to fix a filter leak. He liked it that way. But on cycle 2274.3, anonymity ended. A Federation cruiser, the Resolute Glory, cracked atmosphere over Talos 9 with a roar that rattled every bulkhead. A galactic general, one of the big ones, was aboard. No one knew why he'd bother with a rock like this. Mason didn't care. He was busy fixing a coolant regulator when the landing sirens howled. Half the outpost gathered at Docking Bay 2 to gawk. He stayed behind, tightening bolts, pretending the commotion didn't scratch at old nerves buried deep in his bones. When the bay doors hissed open, the general strode down the ramp, armored aides flanking him. He barked at the station foreman, waved off the security drones, and then, his eyes caught Mason across the hangar, half hidden behind a steam leak. He stopped. The aides stopped. Silence fell. Even the ore loaders halted mid-clank. The general crossed the hangar floor. Boots rang on steel. He paused before the nobody mechanic who still smelled of rust and coolant. Then, before the entire outpost crew, he saluted. "Sir," the general said, voice steady but eyes wide with awe. "It's an honor to see you again." Mason didn't speak. Not yet. He just nodded once, wiped a line of grease from his cheek, and watched every alien eye widen, suddenly unsure what kind of human they'd been laughing at all this time. Somewhere deep in Talos 9's metal guts, the old war drums whispered awake. The salute spread through Talos 9 faster than any ore shipment ever did. By second shift, the aliens who'd barely learned Mason's name were now whispering it like a curse or a prayer. Who was he? A mining hand? A human drifter? A legend breathing in shadows? The general had wasted no time. He commandeered the administrator's grimy office and barked encrypted orders at half the galactic fleet. Outside, station security, mostly underpaid lizards and furry brutes, fidgeted with rifles they hadn't fired in years, eyes darting at every human in overalls as if any might be another hidden war god. But Mason didn't hide. He returned to work as if nothing had happened, splicing wires in the fuel rigs and patching bulkheads while aliens peeked around corners, too scared to speak but too curious to look away. Only one dared approach him directly. Lek, a scrawny insectoid clerk who handled supply manifests. His mandibles clicked nervously as he blocked Mason's path near Storage Bay 5. "Sir, Mr. Cade, may I inquire, are you truly that human? The ghost of Erebus Prime?" Lek asked, voice quivering like a loose circuit. Mason barely looked up from the crate he was hauling. "That's just a story, friend. I fix pipes. Same as yesterday." Lek flinched as though struck. "But the battle records. They say one human unit stood against an entire Krezak swarm. They say the survivors vanished, presumed dead. But the general, he called you sir." Mason sighed, setting the crate down so gently it barely thumped. For a heartbeat, the corridor seemed to hold its breath. "Stories keep people safe, Lek. Safer than truth sometimes. Best forget it." But Lek didn't, nor did the others. By the next shift, snippets of old war feeds circled the crew quarters on scratched holopads. Blurred footage of humans in black battle armor tearing through chitin walls, eyes burning with cold resolve, enemies scattering like insects before a flame. On every screen, a lone figure led them, helmet cracked, bloodied but unbent. The name, Captain Mason Cade. The Krezak remembered that name too.
Out among the asteroids, hidden warships pinged the outpost's codes. They'd heard the same rumor. If Mason Cade lived, they wanted him dead. Properly dead this time. Inside the mess hall, where roughnecks used to shove him aside for the last ration brick, they now stepped back to clear his path. Some nodded. A few tried saluting, awkwardly mimicking what they'd seen the general do. Mason just grabbed his stale coffee and found his usual seat by the corner window. Outside, the stars wheeled on, uncaring. But somewhere deep inside him, long dormant instincts twitched awake. And in the dark between worlds, predators sharpened their blades, hungry to test the truth behind the legend.
By the third cycle, the station felt like a fuse waiting to burn down. The General's fleet still loomed in orbit. Too quiet, engines humming like predators circling wounded prey. Meanwhile, the miners whispered and pointed, pretending to work as rumors bred rumors like vermin in the walls. Mason couldn't walk 5 meters without feeling the weight of frightened or reverent stares. Once that would have angered him. Once he would have told them all to shut up and pick up a rifle. But that was before he buried half his squad on Erebus Prime and promised the ghosts he'd lay down the war forever. He tried to keep his promise. He really did. But war had a way of sniffing him out. It found him on the loading dock, where a shipment of refined plasma cores rattled in zero-G containers. He was tightening a fuel line when the floor quivered beneath him. Not a tremor, but the deep thud of a plasma breach. He looked up just in time to see the sky split open. A Krizak warclaw, sleek and black, crashing through the station's outer hull like a knife through soft metal. Before the first siren wailed, Mason was moving. He ripped open the emergency locker, feeling the old rhythm in his bones: load, prime, lock. The shock baton felt laughably small compared to his old weapons, but it would do. Screams echoed down the corridor as the insectoid Krizak soldiers slithered through the breach. Armored chitin, fangs slick with venom. They fired wild energy bursts, cutting down dock workers too slow to run. Mason didn't run. He stepped into the chaos like a stone dropped in a raging river. The first Krizak lunged, a blur of claws and plasma teeth. Mason ducked low, drove the baton under its thorax, and snapped it alive with a hiss of electricity. Chitin cracked. It screamed. It died. 1 down. 10 more. He barely noticed the miners huddled behind crates, peeking through greasy fingers as the human they'd thought was just a pipe fixer moved like a predator among monsters. Each strike precise, each parry brutal. By the time the last Krizak collapsed, half the dock was smoking debris. A hatch hissed behind him. The general stepped through, flanked by armored troopers. Mason straightened up, chest heaving, baton dripping alien ichor. "General Tovan," Mason rasped. "Little late." The general's mandibles clicked in amusement, a sound halfway between laughter and reverence. "Captain Cade, or do you still pretend you're just a miner?" Mason looked around at the trembling workers, the dead enemies, the breach spilling starlight into the ruin. His hands clenched once, then relaxed. Not today. In that moment, every soul on Talos 9, human, alien, soldier, slave, understood that the war they'd read about in dusty archives was not over. It had simply been waiting for its last soldier to wake up. Talos 9 no longer buzzed with the quiet hum of drills and ore haulers. Now it thundered with the roar of gunships, the bark of orders, and the crackle of plasma fire echoing off the asteroid walls. Mason walked among it all like a storm wrapped in human flesh. The miner's jumpsuit, replaced by matte black combat armor, pieced together from the general's personal cache. Once he had sworn never to wear it again. Now it clung to him like a second skin, heavy with memories and the weight of old ghosts whispering, "Finish it." Word of the attack spread faster than the Krizak reinforcements could arrive. Before dawn cycle, the Galactic Federation broadcast an emergency directive. Talos 9 is to be held at all costs. not for its pitiful mineral yield, but because the legend of a human war god reborn would rally half the fringe worlds to revolt if he fell. In the command hub, a cracked holotable flickered with red enemy signatures closing in from every vector. General Tovan barked orders to squads of mixed-species soldiers, veterans and terrified dockhands alike. But when eyes turned to Mason, they found not an official, not a flag, just a man who once fought a swarm alone, and was about to do it again. He traced a finger across the glowing map. We can't hold the breach. They'll just keep punching holes. But if we seal the main reactor access and draw them to the central shaft, the general caught on instantly. We bottleneck them, force them to fight you where they can't swarm. Mason's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. They want a legend. Give them one they'll choke on. Outside the command hub, crews scrambled to weld blast doors, lay traps, and rig the walls with explosive surprises. Miners handed out old shotguns and homemade spears. They didn't have training, but they had a human ghost leading them, and that counted for more than armor. When the Kreizak wave slammed into the shaft, they found Mason waiting in the center, visor cracked from old wars, eyes burning with the same cold fire that had haunted their ancestors. One brute lunged. He pivoted, fired, rolled beneath the next, each movement pure muscle memory. He was no longer Mason the drifter, nor Cade the pipe fixer. He was what the Kreizak nightmares warned hatchlings about, the death welder, the berserker, the unstoppable ape. Behind him, miners cheered. Aliens fired wildly from scaffolds, emboldened by the impossible sight of a single human throwing himself into the teeth of a swarm without flinching. When the final blast door closed and the shaft fell silent but for the hiss of cooling plasma, Mason leaned against the bulkhead, panting through cracked lips. Tovan's voice cut through the comms. Captain Cade, Talus 9 is secure. The fleet is routing the stragglers. You did it. Mason chuckled, a sound that was half a sob. No, General. We did it. And next time they come. He pushed himself upright, staring at the drifting stars through the armored viewport. They'd better bring more. Somewhere deep in the galaxy's dark corners, a new legend was born that day. Not of a hero nor a savior, but of a human who reminded monsters why they feared Earth's children in the first place.